Imagine this: a powerful CEO, a brilliant legal officer, and a corporate empire on the brink of collapse. But amidst the chaos, a love story unfolds, one that proves true love can conquer even the darkest storms. Stay with me as we dive into this emotional roller coaster, filled with heartbreak, redemption, and a romantic ending that will warm your heart. Welcome back to Emma's Stories, where we bring you the most captivating tales of love, resilience, and the unexpected twists that make life so beautiful. Today, I have a story that will leave you breathless, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and a love so powerful it defied all odds. This is the story of Ethan and Naomi, a story of love, sacrifice, and the courage to fight for what truly matters. Let's begin. Ethan Carter stood in his office on the 50th floor of Carter Global Enterprises, the city skyline stretching endlessly before him. The glass walls reflected the man he had spent years crafting, a powerful, untouchable CEO who controlled every aspect of his life and business. But tonight, as the bourbon swirled in his crystal tumbler, that control felt like it was slipping through his fingers. The source of his unease wasn't the billion-dollar merger he was finalizing, or the relentless pressure from the board. No, it was Naomi Bennett, the company's new chief legal officer. She had been with Carter Global for only 3 months, but in that short time, she had turned his world upside down. Ethan's mind drifted back to the first time he met her. It was a Monday morning, and the boardroom was filled with tension. He had been presenting his acquisition strategy for a tech company when the doors burst open. Naomi walked in, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her presence commanding the room. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice steady but sharp, "your strategy for acquiring Apex Tech is fundamentally flawed. If you proceed as planned, you'll be walking straight into a trap." The room fell silent. Ethan, known for his icy composure, raised an eyebrow. "And who exactly are you?" "Naomi Bennett," she replied, her tone unwavering, "your new chief legal officer. And if you give me 10 minutes, I'll show you how to save this company from a catastrophic mistake." Ethan had been skeptical, but he allowed her to speak. To his surprise, she was right. Apex Tech had been a trap, carefully laid by Victor Hayes, his longtime rival. Naomi had seen through it in hours, something his entire strategy team had missed for weeks. From that moment, Ethan knew Naomi was different. She wasn't just brilliant, she was fearless. But her confidence, her ability to challenge him, and the way she carried herself with unshakable grace had done more than impress him. It had unsettled him in a way he couldn't quite explain. Now, as he stood in his office, the memory of her fiery amber eyes and the way she had looked at him during their last meeting lingered in his mind. She had been wearing a deep green suit that day, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun, and her arguments had been as sharp as ever. But there had been something else, a tension between them that neither of them dared to acknowledge. Ethan took another sip of bourbon, his jaw tightening. He prided himself on being 3 steps ahead of everyone, but Naomi Bennett was a move he hadn't anticipated, and as much as he hated to admit it, she was the one thing he couldn't control. Far below, the city buzzed with life, oblivious to the storm brewing in Carter Global's executive suite. And somewhere in the shadows, Victor Hayes was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the battle for his company and his heart was about to begin. Victor Hayes leaned back in his leather chair, a sly grin spreading across his face as he reviewed the latest photos on his tablet. The images were grainy but damning. Ethan Carter and Naomi Bennett, standing too close in his office, their faces inches apart during what appeared to be a heated argument. To the untrained eye, it looked like a private, intimate moment. Victor had been waiting for an opportunity like this. For years, he had watched Ethan rise to the top, building Carter Global into a corporate empire. But Victor wasn't just a rival, he was a predator. He thrived on exploiting weaknesses, and now he had found Ethan's Achilles heel, Naomi Bennett. "Send these to the press," Victor instructed his assistant, his voice cold and calculated. "And make sure the board sees them first. Let's see how long Carter can keep his golden reputation intact. Meanwhile, at Carter Global, Naomi was working late in her office. The glow of her computer screen illuminated her face as she sifted through documents, her brow furrowed in concentration. She had been tracking Victor's activities for weeks, piecing together evidence of insider trading and corporate sabotage. She knew Victor was dangerous, but she hadn't expected him to stoop this low. The rumors about her and Ethan had started circulating a week ago, whispers in the hallways and subtle glances during meetings. At first she had ignored them, but now they were impossible to avoid. Her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Claire Harper, the company's head of PR and one of Naomi's closest allies. "Claire, we have a problem. Check the news." Naomi's stomach sank as she opened the link. There it was. A headline splashed across every major business outlet. Carter Global Scandal. CEO Ethan Carter and CO Naomi Bennett caught in office romance. The article was filled with speculation, accompanied by the photos Victor had leaked. Naomi's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just an attack on her reputation. It was a calculated move to destabilize the company. She immediately called Claire. "We need to get ahead of this," Naomi said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "Release a statement denying the allegations and focus on the merger. We can't let this distract us." Claire hesitated. "Naomi, the board is already talking about this. They're worried about the optics. Some of them are even suggesting you step down." Naomi's heart sank, but she refused to let it show. "I'm not stepping down," she said firmly. "Not when we're this close to exposing Victor. He's behind this, Claire, I know it." In his office, Ethan was pacing, his phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what the board says," he snapped. "Naomi isn't going anywhere. She's the best CLO this company has ever had, and I won't let them push her out over baseless rumors." Lucas Grant, his CFO and closest confidant, sighed on the other end of the line. "Ethan, you need to think strategically. Victor is playing dirty, and the board is scared. If you don't handle this carefully, it could cost you the merger and the company." Ethan slammed his hand on the desk. "I don't care about the merger right now. This is personal. Victor crossed a line, and I'm not going to let him get away with it." Lucas hesitated. "Is it personal because of the company, or because of Naomi?" Ethan froze, the question hanging in the air. He didn't answer, but the silence spoke volumes. The next morning, the tension at Carter Global was palpable. The board had called an emergency meeting, and Naomi walked into the conference room with her head held high. She could feel their eyes on her, judging her, but she refused to let them see her falter. Victor's plan was working. The board was divided, the media was circling like vultures, and Ethan was more distracted than ever, but Naomi wasn't about to let him or the company fall apart. As the meeting began, one of the board members cleared his throat. "Ms. Bennett, given the recent allegations, we believe it would be in the company's best interest for you to take a leave of absence until this matter is resolved." Naomi's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, Ethan spoke up. "That won't be necessary," he said, his voice firm. "Naomi has done nothing wrong, and I won't allow this company to lose one of its greatest assets over baseless rumors." The room fell silent. Ethan's words carried weight, but Naomi knew it wouldn't be enough. Victor had planted the seeds of doubt, and they were already taking root. As the meeting adjourned, Naomi stayed behind, her mind racing. She had to find a way to stop Victor before he destroyed everything Ethan had built, but deep down, she couldn't ignore the growing fear that her presence was doing more harm than good. That night, as she sat alone in her office, Naomi made a decision. She would do whatever it took to protect Ethan and the company, even if it meant sacrificing everything. Naomi Bennett sat at her desk, staring at the resignation letter she had just typed. The words on the screen blurred as tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She couldn't afford to break down. Not now. The board's reaction earlier that day had been a wake-up call. No matter how much Ethan defended her, the rumors were too damaging. The company was at risk, and she couldn't let her presence be the reason it fell apart. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Ethan. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Naomi?" His voice was sharp, laced with frustration. "I just got off the phone with Lucas. He told me you're considering resigning. Tell me that's not true." Naomi closed her eyes, steadying her voice. "Ethan, this isn't about what I want. It's about what's best for the company. The board is losing faith, the media is relentless, and Victor is using me as a weapon against you. If I step down, it'll take the pressure off." Ethan's voice hardened. "You think stepping down will fix this? Victor won't stop, Naomi. He'll just find another way to attack us. You're playing right into his hands." "I'm not doing this for Victor," she said quietly. "I'm doing it for you, for the company. You've worked too hard to let it all fall apart because of me." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Ethan finally spoke, his voice was softer, almost pleading. "Naomi, you're not just my CLO. You're the reason this company is still standing. I can't do this without you." Her heart ached at his words, but she forced herself to stay strong. "You can, Ethan. You have to. This is bigger than us." Before he could respond, she ended the call. She couldn't let him talk her out of it. The next morning, Naomi walked into Ethan's office, a sealed envelope in her hand. He was standing by the window, his back to her, but he turned as soon as he heard the door close. "Don't do this," he said, his voice low but firm. Naomi placed the envelope on his desk. "It's already done." Ethan stared at her, his jaw clenched. "You think this will solve everything? That walking away will make it easier for me? It won't, Naomi. It'll only make it worse." She met his gaze, her own eyes filled with determination. "You'll thank me one day." Without another word, she turned and walked out, leaving Ethan alone in the silence of his office. Victor Hayes was watching the news when he got the call. He resigned, his assistant informed him. Victor smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Of course she did. She's smart enough to know when she's beaten." But his victory was short-lived. Later that day, he received an anonymous email with a single attachment, a video of Naomi confronting him in a parking garage. In the video, Naomi's voice was calm but cutting. "I know what you're doing, Victor. The insider trading, the sabotage, the leaks. I have enough evidence to bury you." Victor's smirk faded as he watched the video. He hadn't realized she had been gathering evidence against him. "Find out who sent this," he barked at his assistant, "and make sure it doesn't go public." Ethan, meanwhile, was spiraling. Naomi's resignation had hit him harder than he expected. He spent the evening in his office, a bottle of bourbon on his desk, replaying their last conversation in his mind. Lucas Grant found him there, slumped in his chair, staring at the city lights. "You look like hell," Lucas said, closing the door behind him. Ethan didn't respond. Lucas sat down across from him, his expression serious. "You need to pull yourself together, Ethan. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss Victor's proposal for a vote of no confidence. If you don't show up ready to fight, he'll take everything." Ethan finally looked at him, his eyes filled with anger and regret. "She left, Lucas. She walked away. How am I supposed to fight when the one person I trusted the most doesn't believe in me anymore?" Lucas leaned forward, his voice firm. "She didn't leave because she doesn't believe in you. She left because she does. She's trying to protect you, Ethan, but if you let Victor win, everything she sacrificed will be for nothing." Ethan stared at him for a long moment before nodding. "You're right. I can't let him win." The next day, Ethan walked into the boardroom with a renewed sense of purpose. The board members were already seated, their expressions tense. Victor was there too, his smug smile making Ethan's blood boil. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victor began, "I think we can all agree that recent events have proven Mr. Carter's inability to lead this company effectively. I propose a vote of no confidence." Ethan cut him off. "Before you vote, there's something you need to see." He gestured to Lucas, who dimmed the lights and played the video of Naomi confronting Victor. The room fell silent as the evidence of Victor's crimes played out on the screen. When the video ended, Ethan turned to the board. Victor Hayes has been sabotaging this company for months. He's the one behind the leaks, the rumors, and the insider trading. Naomi Bennett resigned to protect this company, but she also left us the tools to fight back. I suggest we use them. The board erupted into murmurs, and Victor's face turned pale. "This is ridiculous," Victor sputtered. "You can't prove anything." Ethan cut him off again. "Actually, we can, and I've already sent the evidence to the authorities." As security escorted Victor out of the building, Ethan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. But there was still one thing left to do. That evening, Ethan boarded a flight to Chicago. He had learned from Claire that Naomi was staying there, working on starting her own law firm. When he arrived at her office, she looked up in surprise. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" He walked toward her, his expression soft but determined. "I came to bring you back. To the company. To me." Naomi shook her head. "Ethan, He interrupted her, taking her hands in his. "I was wrong to let you go. You were trying to protect me, but I don't need protection. I need you, not just as my CLO, but as my partner. In everything." Naomi's eyes filled with tears, but this time she didn't blink them away. "Ethan." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Come back, Naomi. Let's finish what we started. Together." Naomi stared at the small velvet box in Ethan's hand, her breath catching in her throat. She had imagined this moment before, but not like this. Not in the middle of her new office, with her heart still raw from everything they had been through. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling. "This isn't the answer. You don't need me to come back. You've already won. Victor is out of the picture, the board is on your side, and the company is safe. You don't need me to fix anything anymore." Ethan shook his head, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. "This isn't about the company, Naomi. It's about us. I let you walk away because I thought it was what you wanted, but I was wrong. I need you not just as my CLO, but as the person who challenges me, who makes me better. I need you in my life." Naomi's resolve wavered as she looked into his eyes. She wanted to believe him, but the scars from the past few weeks were still fresh. "Ethan, I don't know if I can go back to that world. The rumors, the scrutiny, the constant pressure, it's too much." Ethan stepped closer, his voice softening. "Then we'll face it together. No more secrets, no more sacrifices. I'll fight for you, Naomi, just like you fought for me. But I can't do it without you." For a moment, the room was silent except for the sound of their breathing. Then, slowly, Naomi reached out and took the box from his hand. She opened it to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring, its brilliance catching the light. "Ethan," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he replied, his voice steady. "Say you'll come back. Say we'll do this together." Naomi looked at him, her heart pounding, and then, finally, she nodded. "Yes." The next morning, Ethan and Naomi returned to Carter Global together, walking into the building side by side. The employees who had once whispered about their relationship now watched in awe as the two of them strode through the lobby with a renewed sense of purpose. In the boardroom, the atmosphere was tense. The board members were still reeling from the fallout of Victor's betrayal, and the company's reputation was hanging by a thread. Ethan stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I know the past few weeks have been difficult, but today we're turning the page. Carter Global is stronger than one man's ambition, and we're going to prove it." Naomi stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Victor Hayes tried to destroy this company, but he underestimated us. We've already provided the authorities with evidence of his crimes, and we're working with our legal team to ensure he's held accountable. But more importantly, we're going to rebuild the trust that he tried to break. The board members exchanged glances, their skepticism slowly giving way to respect. For the first time in weeks, it felt like the company was on solid ground again. As the day went on, Ethan and Naomi worked tirelessly to stabilize the company. Claire Harper, the head of PR, organized a press conference to address the rumors and reassure the public. At the press conference, Ethan stood at the podium, the cameras flashing as he began to speak. Over the past few weeks, Carter Global has faced challenges that tested our integrity and our resilience. But today, I want to set the record straight. The rumors about my relationship with Naomi Bennett were used as a weapon to undermine this company. But let me be clear, Naomi Bennett is one of the most brilliant, dedicated professionals I've ever had the privilege of working with. And more than that, she's the woman I love. The room erupted in murmurs as Ethan continued. Yes, we are in a relationship. And no, it has never compromised our work or this company. If anything, it has made us stronger. Because love isn't a weakness, it's a strength. It's what drives us to fight for what matters most. Naomi stepped up beside him, her hand slipping into his. We're not just here to lead this company, she said, her voice steady. We're here to set an example, to show that integrity, trust, and collaboration are the foundation of true success. And we're ready to prove it. The press conference ended with applause, and for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a sense of hope. But their work wasn't done yet. That evening, Ethan and Naomi met with Lucas and Claire in the executive suite to finalize their plan for the company's future. We need to focus on rebuilding trust, Lucas said, spreading out a series of charts on the table. The merger is back on track, but we need to be transparent with our stakeholders. Claire nodded. I've already scheduled interviews with key media outlets. We'll control the narrative and show the public that Carter Global is stronger than ever. Naomi leaned over the table, her mind racing with ideas. We should also implement new policies to prevent something like this from happening again. Stronger oversight, better communication with the board, and a zero-tolerance policy for internal sabotage. Ethan watched her with a small smile, his heart swelling with pride. She was back, and she was as brilliant as ever. As the night wore on, the four of them worked late into the evening, their determination unwavering. By the time they finished, the city lights were twinkling outside the windows, and a sense of calm had settled over the room. Ethan turned to Naomi, his voice soft. You were right, about everything. I should have trusted you from the start. Naomi smiled, her eyes warm. And I should have trusted you to fight for me. I guess we both had something to learn. Ethan reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. Well, I think we've learned it now. Naomi laughed softly, leaning her head against his shoulder. For the first time in weeks, it felt like they could finally breathe. The next day, Carter Global officially announced the reinstatement of Naomi Bennett as Chief Legal Officer. The news was met with overwhelming support, and the company's stock began to climb again. Victor Hayes, meanwhile, was facing charges of insider trading, corporate sabotage, and fraud. His downfall was swift and public, a stark reminder of what happens when ambition turns to greed. Ethan and Naomi, now stronger than ever, stood at the helm of Carter Global, ready to lead the company into a new era. The boardroom was packed. Every seat was filled, and the tension in the air was palpable. Ethan Carter stood at the head of the long mahogany table, his expression calm but resolute. Naomi Bennett sat beside him, her presence commanding as always. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the final showdown to expose Victor Hayes and reclaim Carter Global's integrity. Victor, seated at the far end of the table, looked as smug as ever. Despite the mounting evidence against him, he still believed he could manipulate the board into siding with him. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor began, his voice smooth and calculated. I think we can all agree that recent events have cast a shadow over Carter Global's leadership. The scandals, the media frenzy. It's clear that this company needs a change at the top. I propose we move forward with a vote of no confidence in Mr. Carter's ability to lead. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, their uncertainty evident. Victor's words carried weight, and the damage from the rumors and leaks had left many of them questioning Ethan's leadership. Ethan, however, remained unfazed. He stood tall, his voice steady as he addressed the room. "Before you make any decisions, I'd like to present some information that I believe will change your perspective." He nodded to Lucas Grant, who dimmed the lights and began a presentation on the large screen at the front of the room. The first slide showed a timeline of Victor's activities, from the insider trading to the leaked photos and doctored videos. Each piece of evidence was meticulously laid out, leaving no room for doubt. The room fell silent as the final slide appeared, a video of Naomi confronting Victor in the parking garage. Her voice was calm but firm as she accused him of sabotaging the company and revealed her plan to expose him. Victor's smug expression faltered as the video played. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his confidence beginning to crack. When the video ended, Ethan turned to the board. "Victor Hayes has been orchestrating a campaign to undermine this company for months. He's the one behind the leaks, the rumors, and the insider trading. Naomi Bennett resigned to protect this company, but she also left us the tools to fight back. Everything you've seen here is verifiable, and the authorities have already been notified." The board members erupted into murmurs, their skepticism giving way to outrage. Victor stood abruptly, his voice rising. "This is a smear campaign. You can't prove any of this." Naomi cut him off, her voice sharp and unwavering. "Actually, we can, and we have. The evidence has already been submitted to the SEC and the Department of Justice. Your time is up, Victor." As security entered the room to escort Victor out, he glared at Ethan and Naomi, his composure completely shattered. "This isn't over," he hissed. Ethan met his gaze, his voice cold. "Oh, it's over." The fallout from Victor's exposure was swift and decisive. Within hours, news of his arrest spread across every major media outlet. The headlines were damning. Victor Hayes arrested for insider trading and corporate sabotage. Carter Global's stock, which had been teetering on the edge, began to stabilize. The board, now fully united behind Ethan and Naomi, issued a statement reaffirming their confidence in the company's leadership. But for Ethan and Naomi, the victory was about more than just the company. It was about reclaiming their integrity and proving that their partnership, both professional and personal, was stronger than any obstacle. That evening, Ethan and Naomi stood on the rooftop of Carter Global's headquarters, the city lights stretching out before them. The air was crisp, and the weight of the past few weeks seemed to lift as they looked out at the skyline. "We did it," Naomi said softly, her voice filled with a mix of relief and pride. Ethan turned to her, a small smile playing on his lips. "No, you did it. You were the one who saw through Victor from the beginning. You were the one who gathered the evidence and took the risks. I just followed your lead." Naomi laughed, shaking her head. "You give me too much credit. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have had the courage to come back." Ethan reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "We make a good team, don't we?" She smiled, her eyes meeting his. "The best." For a moment, they stood in silence, the city buzzing with life below them. Then Ethan pulled her closer, his voice soft but firm. "Naomi, I meant what I said at the press conference. You're not just my CLO. You're my partner. In everything." Naomi's heart swelled as she looked at him. "And you're mine." The next day, Carter Global held a company-wide meeting to address the recent events and outline their vision for the future. Employees filled the auditorium, their faces a mix of curiosity and hope. Ethan and Naomi stood on the stage together, their presence commanding the room. "Over the past few weeks, we've faced challenges that tested our strength and our integrity," Ethan began, his voice steady. "But we've come out stronger because of the people in this room. Carter Global isn't just a company, it's a family. And together, we're going to build a future we can all be proud of." Naomi stepped forward, her voice warm but firm. "We've learned a lot from this experience, and we're committed to making changes that will ensure something like this never happens again. Transparency, accountability, and trust will be the foundation of everything we do moving forward." The room erupted into applause, and for the first time in weeks, the atmosphere was filled with optimism. As the meeting ended, Ethan and Naomi walked through the halls of Carter Global, their employees greeting them with smiles and words of encouragement. "You know," Ethan said, glancing at Naomi, "I think this might be the start of something even bigger than we imagined." Naomi smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I think you're right." And as they stepped into the elevator, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain: together, they could handle anything. Months had passed since Victor Hayes's downfall, and Carter Global was thriving once again. The company had not only regained its footing, but was now stronger than ever. Investors were confident, employees were motivated, and the media had shifted its narrative, praising the resilience of the company and its leadership. But for Ethan Carter and Naomi Bennett, the journey had been about more than just saving a company. It had been about finding themselves and each other amid the chaos. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in hues of gold and pink, Ethan stood on the rooftop of Carter Global's headquarters. The air was crisp, carrying the faint hum of the bustling city below. He had asked Naomi to meet him there, and now he waited, his heart pounding in a way he hadn't felt in years. When the elevator doors opened, Naomi stepped out, her silhouette framed by the fading sunlight. She wore a simple black dress, her hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. Ethan couldn't help but smile as she approached, her presence as magnetic as ever. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, a hint of curiosity in her voice. Ethan nodded, gesturing for her to join him by the railing. "I thought it was time we took a moment to breathe, to look at everything we've accomplished." Naomi leaned against the railing, her gaze sweeping over the city. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Hard to believe how far we've come." Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. "We wouldn't have made it without you, Naomi. You're the reason this company's still standing, and you're the reason I'm still standing." Naomi laughed lightly, shaking her head. "You give me too much credit, Ethan. You're the one who fought for this company, for the people who believed in you. I just helped." Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a tender tone. "You didn't just help. You saved me, Naomi. When everything was falling apart, you were the one thing that kept me going, and not just because of the company, because of you." Naomi's breath caught as she looked up at him, her heart pounding. "Ethan!" He reached for her hand, his fingers brushing against hers. "I've spent so much of my life focused on building this company, on proving myself to the world, but none of it means anything without you. You're the one person who sees me for who I really am, who challenges me, who makes me better. And I don't want to spend another day without you by my side." Naomi's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "Ethan, I—" Before she could finish, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring, its brilliance catching the last rays of sunlight. "Naomi Bennett," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You are the love of my life. You're my partner, my equal, my everything. Will you marry me?" For a moment Naomi was speechless, her heart swelling with a mix of joy and disbelief. She had always been the one to stay composed, to think things through, but now, standing here with Ethan, she felt her walls crumble. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking, then, louder, with a radiant smile, "Yes, Ethan, I'll marry you." Ethan's face lit up as he slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, as the city lights began to twinkle around them. "I love you," he murmured, his voice filled with emotion. Naomi pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, her own shining with tears. "I love you too, Ethan, more than I ever thought possible." The next day, the news of their engagement spread quickly through Carter Global. Employees congratulated them with genuine warmth, their smiles reflecting their renewed sense of hope and unity within the company. At a company-wide meeting later that week, Ethan and Naomi stood together on stage, addressing their team. "This company has been through a lot," Ethan began, his voice steady and confident. "But we've come out stronger because of the people in this room. Carter Global isn't just about business, it's about family. And I'm proud to stand here today, not just as your CEO, but as someone who believes in the power of love, trust, and partnership." Naomi stepped forward, her hand slipping into Ethan's. "We've learned so much from this experience, and we're committed to building a future that reflects the values we all share. Together, we're not just rebuilding, we're creating something extraordinary." The room erupted into applause, the energy electric. For the first time in months, the atmosphere was filled with optimism and excitement for the future. That evening, Ethan and Naomi returned to his penthouse, the city lights casting a warm glow through the floor-to-ceiling windows. They sat together on the couch, a bottle of champagne between them, their laughter filling the room. "You know," Naomi said, leaning her head against Ethan's shoulder, "I never imagined my life turning out like this. I thought I'd spend my career fighting battles in courtrooms, not falling in love with my boss and saving a company." Ethan chuckled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it?" Naomi smiled, her eyes soft as she looked up at him. "It does. But I wouldn't change a thing. Not if it brought me here, with you." Ethan cupped her face in his hands, his gaze filled with love. "You're my everything, Naomi. And I promise, no matter what challenges come our way, I'll always fight for us." Naomi leaned into his touch, her heart full. "And I'll always fight for you, Ethan, for us." As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, the world outside seemed to fade away. They had faced the storm together and come out stronger, their love a beacon of hope and resilience. And as they looked out at the city, their future stretched before them like the endless horizon, filled with promise, possibility, and a love that would never falter.